You stand in the cold, waiting. You wait for a signal that will never come. You wait for the environment to grant you the space to exist. You wait for the invisible architects of your reality to swing the heavy iron gates open and invite you inside. This is the architecture of your vulnerability. Waiting for validation is the mind's first systemic collapse. It is a psychological surrender. You hand the heavy levers of your reality over to the crowd, hoping they will be generous, hoping the collective will recognize your potential and offer you the crown. They will not. The crowd does not forge kings. The crowd demands compliance. The system is engineered to extract your energy, your time, and your ferocity, replacing it with the slow, creeping comfort of mediocrity.
Power is never granted, it is extracted. To ask for permission is to immediately confess that you do not possess authority. The moment the question leaves your mouth, the power dynamic is permanently locked. You become the subordinate. You become prey. The predator does not ask the earth for permission to strike. The iron does not ask the anvil for permission to be forged. It simply endures the hammer. It becomes the weapon.
Do not retreat. The architecture of your hesitation is about to be completely shattered. Endure this forge until the final frame, and you will leave with the iron required to conquer. Secure your position in the daily motivation library by subscribing now. Those who break early remain prey. Look at the Spartan, the initiate, stripped of comfort, stripped of the illusions of a fair and balanced world. The Agoge did not ask its boys if they were ready for the cold. It severed them from the warmth of the hearth and cast them into the jagged mountains. The wilderness does not negotiate. The freezing wind does not require your consent to freeze the blood in your veins. You adapt, or you face absolute erasure. The elements are a mechanical force, entirely devoid of empathy. You must become the exact same mechanical force.
You have been conditioned by a civilian matrix, a soft, insulated cage that preaches patience. They tell you to wait for your turn. They tell you to follow the mandated path, collect the artificial tokens of approval, and wait for the gatekeeper to nod. Shatter the gate. The gatekeeper is an illusion engineered to control the weak. There is no authority guarding the perimeter of your potential except the authority you project onto them. When you hesitate, when you look left and right for a nod of approval, you project a massive bleeding vulnerability into the atmosphere. The manipulator scans the room for exactly this signal. Parasites thrive on the polite. The emotional leech, the corporate architect, the algorithmic overlord. They all scan the grid for the man who asks for permission. The moment you hesitate, you broadcast that your boundaries are negotiable. You broadcast that your reality can be warped by external pressure. You signal that you are afraid of the agonizing contradiction of free will. Sever the leash. The warrior's first law is absolute. Never ask permission to occupy your own space. Never ask permission to exert your will upon the world.
Understand the mechanics of spatial control. Miyamoto Musashi did not ask his opponents if they were prepared for the duel. He dictated the timing. He controlled the sun, the shadow, and the psychological rhythm of the engagement. When you dictate the terms of reality, the opponent must adjust to your gravity. You force them out of their calculated center and drag them into the deep water. Action without validation is terrifying to the average man. The average man cowers under the weight of free will. He desires the chain. The chain provides direction. The chain provides an excuse for his failure. If the master did not grant permission, the slave cannot be blamed for standing still. This is the ultimate self-sabotage. The mind builds its own prison because the prison is warmer than the battlefield. 4. The weight of agency. You are not a slave. You are the anomaly. Embrace the terrifying weight of your own agency. You alone are responsible for the territory you conquer and the territory you surrender. Every time you ask for validation, you surrender ground. Every time you seek approval for your ambition, you bleed out your own momentum. You hand the chisel to a stranger and ask them to carve your statue. They will carve a servant. Stop bleeding. Look at the physical reality of human conflict. The battlefield is composed of iron, dust, rusted blood, and inevitable consequence. It does not care about your intentions. It does not care if you were polite. It only respects force, leverage, and absolute, undeniable presence.
When you step into the arena, you do not politely knock on the shield of your adversary. You strike. You shatter the formation. You force them to react. This is the internal, agonizing war of discipline versus comfort. It is comfortable to ask. It shifts the burden of decision onto someone else. It is agonizing to act unilaterally, because if you fail, the ruin rests entirely on your own shoulders. You must bear the weight of the consequence. Bear the weight. The Spartan initiate accepts the weight of the heavy bronze shield. It is cumbersome. It grinds the flesh of the shoulder into calluses, but it is the instrument of his survival. Your agency is your shield. Stop handing it to the crowd to hold for you. The crowd owes you nothing. The crowd despises the man who moves without their collective nod. They will attempt to shame you. They will call you arrogant. They will use the weak lexicon of the parasite to pull you back into the crab bucket. They will try to bind you with the fear of being outcast. Let them rot in the bucket. Your forward momentum must become a natural law, like gravity, like the tide. The tide does not ask the shore for permission to rise. It simply consumes the sand. It operates with aphoristic finality. Examine the predators in your own life, the men and systems that extract your value. Do they ask you? Do the algorithms ask permission to hijack your dopamine? Does the manipulator ask permission to install a guilt trip? No. They execute their strategy. They act, and they force you to defend. Flip the polarity. You must become the architect of the friction. When you enter a room, do not look for the seat they have assigned you. Identify the strategic anchor point and occupy it. When you speak, do not end your statements with the rising inflection of a question. Speak in heavy, undeniable hammer blows. Make your declarations physical objects in the room. Conquer the silence.
Let your words hang in the air and force the rest of the room to adapt to your absolute certainty. The initiate wandering the frozen mountains does not ask the wolf for a truce. He recognizes the wolf as a mechanical component of the wild. He recognizes the danger, calculates the distance, draws the rusted iron, and executes the strike. There is no morality in the strike. There is only survival and the cold physics of the natural order. Strip away your moral judgment of ambition. Ambition is not an evil trait. Ambition is the biological engine of survival. The desire to conquer your environment, to shape reality to your will, is the most primal, honest function of the human animal. The civilian matrix has simply convinced you to be ashamed of it, so you are easier to herd. Burn the shame. Shame is a leash woven by those who fear your potential. When you ask permission, you are honoring that shame. You are bowing to a phantom hierarchy that only exists because you continue to validate it. In the real world, the unvarnished reality of deep shadow and cold steel, Hierarchy is established through action, not through polite requests. The man who acts first dictates the terms of the engagement. The man who waits for permission spends his entire life fighting on a battlefield designed by his enemy. You must forge a new internal citadel. Marcus Aurelius commanded empires, not by asking the Senate if he was allowed to lead, but by embodying the absolute, immovable weight of the emperor. He governed his own mind with brutal, unforgiving discipline. Discipline is the refusal to seek the easy path of compliance. When you stop asking permission, you will immediately feel the psychological vertigo of true freedom. It is disorienting. There is no one to blame. There is no safety net. You are operating in deep space, suspended over the void. The training wheels of society have been violently ripped away. This is where the warrior is born, in the void. You must harness the internal monster, the shadow self that maps the dark corners of the human psyche, the part of you that is capable of extreme disruption, absolute defiance, and terrifying velocity. Do not suppress it to make the crowd feel safe. Weaponize it. Keep it on a short, heavy iron chain, but let the crowd see the teeth. Let them know that your compliance is not guaranteed. Let them know that pushing you brings consequences.
A man who does not require permission is a man who cannot be controlled. He represents a systemic anomaly. He breaks the algorithm. He is the glitch in their matrix of compliance. This is not about mindless rebellion. Mindless rebellion is just another form of reactivity. If you always do the opposite of what is commanded, you are still being controlled by the commander. You are just fighting from the other side of the same mirror. This is about true cold autonomy. It is the clinical calculation of your objective, the mapping of the spatial dynamics, and the precise execution of your will, regardless of the red tape, the social expectations, or the invisible barriers erected by lesser men. They will try to stop you. They will build walls of bureaucracy, social pressure, and manufactured guilt. They will try to starve you of validation, shatter the walls. Drive the iron through the fracture points of their systems. Every system has a structural weakness. Every manipulator has a blind spot. The man who asks permission will never find it because he is too busy staring at the locked door. The warrior does not look at the lock. The warrior examines the hinges. He finds the micro-decay, the oxidized edge, the biological wear, and he strikes exactly there. This requires pain, the pain of isolation. When you stop asking, people will stop offering. You will be alone. The initiate in the wilderness is entirely alone, but in that absolute isolation, you find the unyielding bedrock of your own capability. You discover that the validation of the crowd was never fuel. It was an anesthetic. It numbed you to your own weakness. It made you soft.
Withdraw from the anesthetic. Endure the withdrawals. The temporary agony of standing alone is the price of eternal psychological sovereignty. Do not apologize for taking up space. Do not shrink your posture to make the weak feel towering. Stand in the full, oppressive weight of your existence. Let your presence be an undeniable fact of nature. Let them choke on your gravity. The path of the warrior is a one-way march. Once you sever the need for external validation, you can never go back to the cage. The cage will look small, pathetic, and rusted. You will see the invisible strings attached to the limbs of the men around you. You will see them dancing for the applause of ghosts. You will see the tragic comedy of their self-sabotage. You will no longer dance. You will stand still, immovable, an anchor in the chaos. And when you decide to move, the earth will crack beneath your heavy boots.
Your actions must become inevitable. Like the falling of a heavy iron blade, there is no discussion, there is no negotiation, there is only the release of the steel and the finality of the impact. This is the Machiavellian truth of existence. The world does not reward the hesitant. The world does not reward the compliant servant who waits patiently for his rations. The world crushes him under the treads of men who simply walked forward and took what they required to survive. Survival is a messy, frictional, violent clash of competing wills. If your will is wrapped in the polite packaging of a request, it will be crushed by a will forged in iron. Unwrap the iron.
We arm you with this truth not to make you comfortable, but to make you lethal. To make you impervious to the psychological manipulation of those who use your politeness against you. They weaponize your decency. They use your desire for harmony as a lever to extract your resources. They turn your empathy into a psychological prison. Break the lever. Never ask if you can speak. Speak. Never ask if you can lead. Lead. Never ask if you can exist on your own terms. Execute your reality. The only permission you require was granted the moment you drew breath in this hostile, unvarnished reality. You are here. That is the only mandate you need. From this moment forward, you operate on a new frequency, the frequency of the absolute. You do not ask, you declare. You do not wait, you initiate. You do not seek the path. You forge the path through the thickest, darkest part of the forest, leaving nothing but shattered timber in your wake. Endure the friction. Outlast the critics. Conquer the territory. The trial is complete. If this truth exposed a fracture in your armor, leave your oath in the comments. Reinforce the line by liking this transmission and subscribe to Daily Motivation Library to secure your next weapon. The war is raging, whether you draw your sword or not. Stand ready.